Jasmine Crockett versus Caroline Levitt. The debate that exposed the truth everyone wanted to forget. The debate started like any other, podiums, promises, and provocations. But it only took 20 minutes for everything to spiral out of control. Not because of shouting, not because of scandals, but because of a piece of paper that would change the course of that night, and maybe the entire election. Portland, Oregon. A packed auditorium. Cameras rolling. Hashtags trending before the first real clash even began. Caroline Levitt, 27, social media darling and former communications secretary, commanded the stage with rehearsed lines and a razor-sharp smile. Her rhetoric was sharp as ever. Attacks disguised as questions. Sarcasm masked as charm. All meticulously calculated. All perfectly rehearsed. At the other end of the stage, Jasmine Crockett, 44, a seasoned state representative and political veteran, watched in silence. In front of her, on the podium, sat a black folder, the same one she clutched firmly while Caroline spoke about minority victimhood and the emotional fragility of those who can't handle real debate. The audience laughed, clapped, found it amusing. Jasmine didn't. She didn't interrupt, didn't respond. She just listened until, with a nearly imperceptible movement, she opened the folder, pulled out a sheet of paper, looked at the moderator, Ricardo Alves, and simply said, "I think it's time to show this." Silence. The paper was passed hand to hand. Cameras zoomed in. Caroline turned pale. But before anything could be said, the live feed was cut. A fragment of the debate hit the internet like gasoline on fire. And what seemed like just another clash between left and right turned into something much bigger. A public expose, a live collapse, and the beginning of a turning point that no one, not even Jasmine, could have predicted. And that's how it all began. 2 days before the debate, Marcus Ribeiro called late at night. His voice was urgent, almost shaky, the kind of tone Jasmine had learned to take seriously over the years. "I got it. You need to see this." At their usual cafe, between quick glances and phones face down on the table, he slid a manila envelope underneath. Inside, for stapled pages, a memo, official, stamped, with Caroline Levitt's name in the header. Where did this come from? Jasmine asked, eyes locked on the words. Elena Torres, her former aide. She resigned 2 weeks ago. Said she couldn't be part of the charade anymore. The contents were clear, direct, brutal. Strategic instructions to destabilize female opponents, especially black women. Portraying them as emotionally volatile, irrational, unfit for leadership roles. The memo listed verbal triggers, tone suggestions, words like hysteria, victimhood, drama, all meticulously crafted to push Jasmine into an explosive reaction. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, felt the rage rise like a slow tide, but when she opened them again, only focus remained. She wants me to react, to break on air. She wants a spectacle, but she won't get one. That same night, Jasmine called her team, canceled all previous debate prep, replaced it with a new kind of training, cold, calculated rehearsals, chairs lined up, simulated cameras, a staffer playing the role of Caroline, repeating insults. Jasmine responded with silence, long pauses, steady gazes. Every second of calm will be a weapon, she repeated like a mantra. Marcus returned for the final rehearsal. It's going to be tough. She'll throw everything at you. Let her. Jasmine replied, tucking the black folder into the corner of the room. I've got the truth. And that's heavy. This was more than a debate. It was a trap, crafted with precision. But Jasmine had something more powerful than any argument. She had the map of the minefield, and she knew exactly where to step. The debate began with all the expected protocol. Polite applause, predictable questions, rehearsed answers. Caroline smiled with confidence. Her youth charisma and stage presence made her magnetic to the audience. She knew it and used every second to her advantage. Representative Crockett, she began, tilting her head slightly with faux politeness. I see you keep talking about identity, race, gender, but what about ideas? What's left when you take away the victimhood? Laughter echoed. Jasmine didn't react. Not a single muscle in her face moved. Moderator Ricardo Alves tried to steer the conversation back, with a question about public safety, but Caroline intercepted again. I understand that, for some people, being questioned is uncomfortable. But if you can't stand the heat, maybe you shouldn't be in the kitchen, right? The tension in the air was palpable. The cameras searched for any flicker on Jasmine's face. A scowl, a sigh, any sign that she had been rattled. But all they saw was poise. Jasmine simply responded with a brief nod and a voice so calm it disarmed by contrast. I prefer ideas over insults. And then the moment arrived. With a near-choreographed precision, Jasmine opened the black folder. The gesture was small, but its impact, immense. She pulled out the memo, took 2 steps toward the moderator. Ricardo, I believe the public deserves to know what's behind this spectacle. Ricardo frowned as he received the paper. He began to read. Silence. Caroline tried to smile, but the corner of her mouth trembled. Her eyes darted between the audience and the cameras. Jasmine returned to the podium, serene. The game was shifting, and she didn't even need to raise her voice. Ricardo Alves read the header aloud. Internal memo, communication strategies, Levitt campaign. The auditorium held its breath. The words that followed landed like well-aimed daggers. Exploit negative stereotypes when confronted by black women. Suggest lack of control, hysteria, victimhood. Use phrases that evoke doubt about emotional stability and preparedness. The cameras caught everything. The audience, once lively, now sank into stunned silence. Caroline smiled, but it was an empty, shaky forced smile. This is fake, she snapped, her voice louder than necessary. A cheap shot, a fabricated document. But her hand was trembling, and the sweat on her forehead did not go unnoticed. This document came from within your own team, Caroline. Ricardo said, still holding the paper. Elena Torres' signature is right here. The atmosphere erupted with tension. Caroline stepped forward and yanked the microphone from the podium in a fit of rage. This is a lie. Leftist manipulation. A trap. A clown show. They cut to Jasmine's face. Calm. Unmoving. Truth doesn't need to shout, she said, looking directly into the camera. It only needs to be heard. Caroline turned to producers backstage, screaming, cut this feed. Now. But it was already too late. The broadcast continued. Social media exploded in real time, and Caroline, the image strategist, had just revealed herself in her raw state. No filters, no masks, no control. What was meant to be a calculated strike had boomeranged, and the sound of the impact echoed far beyond the auditorium. Caroline's outburst didn't stay confined to the debate hall. In less than an hour, the clip of her shouting, ripping the mic, and berating production was on every platform. On X, the hashtag Jasmine was right-hit trending topics before midnight. Within 24 hours, the video had surpassed 5 million views just on TikTok. On YouTube, analyses, reactions, and parodies multiplied. The moment had become a symbol. Jasmine, on the other hand, remained silent. No official statement. No post. Just a single image posted by her team. The black folder open on a wooden desk. Caption, Truth doesn't need accessories. Caroline, in shock, vanished for 3 days. Her media team was dismantled. Advisors scrambled to contain the fallout, while journalists dug into the campaign's past. And they found more than expected. Elena Torres, the former assistant responsible for the leak, finally came forward. In an exclusive interview with Marcus Ribeiro, she revealed that the memo was not an isolated case. At least 3 other campaigns were being trained with the same scripts, she said, looking straight into the camera. The goal was always the same: silence, distort, provoke, especially against women who dared not to lower their heads. Her testimony was a second earthquake, one that exposed not only Caroline's moral failing, but a political structure powered by manipulation disguised as strategy. Meanwhile, Caroline reappeared. In a video, seated on a white couch, soft voice, carefully done makeup. I made a mistake. I overreacted. The pressure, she began in a rehearsed tone, but the public didn't buy it. The comments said it all. Too late. Too polished. Where's the Caroline from the debate? Jasmine watched from home. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She knew this wasn't a personal victory. It was a crack. And through it, the truth had begun to slip. 2 days after Caroline's public outburst and Elena's testimony, Jasmine finally spoke. It wasn't on a stage or in front of professional cameras. It was live, on a simple Instagram stream, with her phone propped up on stacked books and a soft light in the background. This was never about me, she began, looking directly at the screen. It's about everyone who's ever been silenced with fake smiles and muted microphones. For nearly an hour, she answered questions from followers, journalists, and everyday citizens. She explained how she managed to stay calm, how she and her team had trained not to react to the obvious theater staged by the opposing campaign. I didn't win the debate when I handed over that paper, she said. I won when I decided not to fall into the trap. The next day, Jasmine visited the Salem Community Center. No spotlights, no crowds. Just plastic chairs filled with teachers, neighborhood leaders, young activists. She spoke about ethics, dignity in public service, and the need to build policies that reflect the reality of those left out of decision-making. We've gotten used to seeing politics as a performance, she said, holding a coffee cup. But real transformation starts right here. The audience was small but attentive. At the end, an older woman approached and said, "When you stayed silent during the debate, I cried because I saw my daughter in you. I saw all of us." Jasmine hugged her silently. There were no headlines in that moment, no trending topics, but there was impact, and it was real. That night, as she left the center, Jasmine looked up at Salem's clouded sky. It wasn't the calm after the storm. It was the beginning of a conversation that could no longer be ignored. Days after the debate, the ripple effects were still being felt. On social media, in quiet conversations, and behind closed doors in state politics. Caroline didn't return to her campaign with force. Her appearances became rare, always calculated, stripped of the spontaneity that once fueled her. But the damage was done. The video of her meltdown became a case study in political communication courses, a lesson in what not to do when confronted with the truth. Meanwhile, Jasmine's composure was being reanalyzed, not as damage control, but as deliberate resistance. Her serenity on that stage had become a symbol of something greater, the breaking of a cycle where women, especially black women, are pushed to their limits only to be accused of overreacting. In an editorial by the state's leading newspaper, one line stood out. "When the lie collapses, all that's left is what's real." It was a precise summary of what the public had witnessed that night. More than an individual victory, the episode sparked deeper reflection in political coverage. Journalists began questioning the narratives they once accepted without scrutiny. Talk shows gave space to voices that had long been invisible. And the public, tired of performance, began valuing authenticity. Jasmine didn't capitalize on the moment with slogans or fiery rallies. Instead, she moved through schools, cultural centers, neighborhood associations, spaces beyond the traditional electoral radar, but filled with transformative power. In a final interview, when asked about the debate's impact, she replied simply, "I didn't break the system. I just held a mirror up to it." And in that reflection, what many saw was not just the face of a frantic Caroline, but of an entire system, trembling in the face of truth. Because sometimes all it takes to change a narrative is letting silence make the right kind of noise. And what if I told you this debate wasn't just between two candidates, but between two ways of doing politics? One rooted in performance, and another in presence. One that shouts to silence, and one that stays quiet to reveal. Now tell me, how many times have you seen someone discredited just for staying calm? How many times have you been told that truth is weakness if it doesn't come out yelling? The story of Jasmine and Caroline is about more than votes. It's about the behind-the-scenes moments no one wants to show, and the times when the mask slips live. And if you've made it this far, maybe you're tired of fabricated narratives too. Maybe, like us, you're searching for stories that expose not just the facts, but the system that keeps distorting them. If this story moved you, unsettled you, or made you think, then it's already been worth it. But this doesn't end here. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications, because here, we don't just tell stories. We reveal what they hide. And remember, Sometimes the most revolutionary act isn't raising your voice. It's letting the truth echo. See you in the next episode.